In every breath I take, I will praise you with my life. Have you lost faith in today's church or Christianity? A next generation pastor-turned-singer-songwriter, Sean Rodriquez, and his family took a leap of faith in 2022, leaving behind the familiar landscapes of Colorado to plant new roots in Nashville, Tennessee. His faith to follow his calling threw him into the spotlight a year later. His message and music of hope is turning the hearts of today's generations toward God, and he can turn yours too. This is his story. This is today's Nashville. This is faith. Sean, what a blessing to have you on today's Nashville. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
I've heard a lot about you. You've been busy since 2022, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been a lot in a short amount of time, but God has been so good, and just beyond thankful for what he's done.
Now, you started out as a family pastor.
That's right.
Were you in Colorado?
I was back in Denver, Colorado. Grew up in the church. My grandfather, he was and still is a pastor for over 40 years now. And so I had the incredible honor to just learn how to do ministry, how to love people, how to lead people, and how to serve people from him. And so when the time was right and God did what God did in my life, I was able to step into that family pastor role, working with children's ministry, with youth ministry, and occasionally getting to speak into the lives of the parents and the grandparents on a Sunday morning as well. So it was an incredible blessing for sure.
How old were you when you accepted Jesus into your life?
Oh man, that's a solid question. So I grew up, my situation was very unique in that I grew up knowing who God was and having that relationship because my family placed a lot of emphasis on that. When I started to really get serious about who God was in my life and who God could be in the lives of others who let him in, that was right around 20, 21 years old, when I just started to see the culture that I grew up in. It was a very negative culture. Grew up in the inner city, and the church that my grandfather runs, I mean, there's projects on all four sides of it. And it was a culture that had just a negative influence on me and my friends and the young people coming up there. And when I hit about 20, 21 years old, I hit this point where I realized, God, this isn't the best that you have for us. Like, surely this can't be what your plan for us was.
Like, what was going on?
So it's a very kind of a toxic community. And I will say this, that a lot of the teenagers growing up there, and myself included, we look up to, we looked up to the gang culture. Young women, you're talking about the young women who were, getting pregnant at 16, 17 years old. But we all just were taught that was life. And that was what the culture taught us, right? Now people say, well, wait a minute, Sean, your grandfather was a pastor. Didn't you know any better? Yes, I knew better, but also because of that, I experienced what power the secular culture can have over somebody. To say, I grew up in the church and I was still influenced by this stuff. Now imagine not knowing God, where all that you have is this secular influence. And so that got me fired up to say, no, we have to reach out to the generation coming after me, and we got to show, especially in the hearts of the kids and the middle schoolers, we have to show them that there is another way besides what their culture and community are teaching them. And so that's what really got me fired up about pouring into that next generation, is showing them like God has so much better for you. And I think that's really what Jesus did, even in the Bible, was he didn't come and tell people, stop acting the way you're acting, stop living that way. He came in and said, stop. Here's a better way. He didn't just tell them to stop. He didn't just shut them down, but he showed them a better way, the way that they were made to live. And so that was the heart behind the family ministry for me, is like, let me help you guys realize that there is something so much better than this. And so that's kind of where it all started for me.
Was there a point in your life, a moment that just you were almost at the point where it's like, oh, which way to go?
It was, I would say that came in the late teenage years. And that was really sparked by, my questioning of the church. And it wasn't so much questioning God, it was more questioning the church. And that just comes from church hurt. like a lot of people within the church are imperfect, and you run into so many people that may be using God in the wrong way, representing God in the wrong way, and that's discouraging, and it truly does hurt. So when the time that I experienced that the most in my life was in my late teenage years, just kind of being let down and being hurt by some people that I thought were mentors in my life, that I thought were leaders in my life. But the transforming power of God that I saw in the lives of people that came through the church, that was undeniable. So no level of church hurt was ever enough to turn me away from who God was, because I saw how he really got a hold of lives. And so I said, God, all right, I still want to serve you, but I'm a little bit upset with some church folks right now. Show me what to do. And it really was that message of be different, be that church person that you wish you had in your life. Be that mentor, be that leader that you prayed for in your life. Everything that you've learned what not to do. So now go and do what you would have wanted to be done.
I think that's a great message, because we were just talking about it even today. So many people are leaving the church because they've been hurt, or they don't think it's relevant.
Yeah.
People are questioning their faith.
Yeah. And it's so true. And we have to have grace, because just like they fall, just like we get mad at them, well, we're not always perfect either. Church hurt goes both ways, and it could happen to anybody at any time. But for anybody that's experienced that, the imperfection of the people in church, we just remind them that they're not the ones that are supposed to be perfect. God is the one that is perfect, and that is continuously working in our hearts. And so if you've been on the receiving end of church hurt, well, have faith that God still has that transforming power and that God is still for you. And if you've been on the dealing end of church hurt, know that you can still be redeemed from that. Know that you can be forgiven and you can move forward. And God can even use the things that you've done that you're not proud of. God can even use those if you say, okay, that's not who I am anymore. I'm doing this the right way, and I want to use what I've done to change what I do going forward, and I want to treat people better. So there's always a way out of it. There's always a way back, and that's why God is who God is.
It's wonderful. So how old were you when you decided, okay, I'm going to go into being a pastor, ministry, and you became the family pastor at your church? How old were you then?
So I was about 25 years old, and I had been serving in the children's ministry and in the youth ministry up to that point. But the title became official around 25 years old, and that was a big responsibility for me, because it was, here's the children's ministry, here's the youth ministry, it's yours. Do with it what you will. And so it was weird, because I'm stepping into this ministry and I'm being asked to lead people that are 20 years older than me. And it was one of those like, God, are you sure? Like, this is where you want me to be at? But what I felt God tell me is, if you're here, it's not by accident. Walk in confidence, not because of what you can do, but walk in confidence because I will lead through you, and all I need you to do is be obedient. And once I grasped that God had me here on purpose, well, then I was able to run in confidence with everything that we did from that point on.
Amazing. He had a purpose. He led you there. He led you to Nashville, and we're going to talk about it when we come back. Sean, we were talking about you being a family pastor. Now, how long were you pastoring the church?
That was right about 2 to 3 years that the official title was family pastor. So yeah, about 2 or 3 years.
So you went from family pastor to music artist.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Man, so that's a really fun story. So along this journey in my life and the ministry and all of that, music was always something that I loved. And I was inspired by, artists like Toby Mac growing up and things like that, just music that made you move, And so I had always experimented with making my own songs and all of that. And it was something that I always thought, that would be really cool if I could do that one day. But where I come from, it's kind of hard to dream big. It's hard to think you could do something like that. So it was something that I kind of pursued on the side. Now, what happened was after I had my daughter, she's 5 years old now, but it was about a year after I had my daughter that I just told myself, like, I have to decide. because I was spending money on making songs still. And
you were still in Colorado, right?
And I was still in Colorado, and you don't make a lot when you work in ministry. And so it was kind of like, all right, we're getting a little tight on budget. I need to figure out what I'm going to do. And I was fully prepared actually in that year, in that season of my life. It was just after COVID. So of course, like everybody else, I went through the big, eureka moment during COVID. So I said, all right, I need to decide what I'm going to do. I'm either going to go into ministry 100%, or I'm going to fully pursue music 100%. And in that season, I thought, I'm done with music. I'm going to just focus on ministry. I'm going to stop spending money and time on music, and this is what I'm going to be about. So I was praying like, God, if you gave me this passion to be more than just a passion, show me why you gave me that. Now, this opportunity to come out and visit a friend out in Tennessee popped up, and he said, hey, yeah, man, I like your songs. And I was like, thanks, man. I think they're going to be stopping soon. They'll probably be done. And he said, well, why don't you come out here and take a trip? And he said, you could stay with me for the week. Let me just show you around and show you what's out here. So I was like, all right, fine.
So was your wife on board with all this?
She was on board with the trip. She said, yeah, why don't you go? You haven't seen him for a long time. Go out there. And so I said, all right. Now, as I'm preparing to go out there, I have this just long list of prayers, right? Like, God, if you, and almost like, you make a deal with God kind of thing. But my situation was, God, I don't think that I'm supposed to keep pushing for this music stuff. But if you want me to do this, then, please show me some kind of sign or something that this is where you have me. And when I came out here, it was sign after sign after sign after sign, just running into certain people in coffee shops, being able to sit down and just share music. Now, one of the people that I got to come across when I was out here visiting is who is now my record label, We Rock Entertainment. And they said, hey, we love your heart. We love that you work hard. We love your music. You're a great guy. But we can't say that we would want to work with you because it's hard to work with an artist that is from out of state. We really prefer to work with artists that are here in town. And I said, okay. So I call my wife that night from my friend's house and I say, hey, so yeah, I had this crazy meeting today. And this label said that they might be interested in working with me. They couldn't make any promises, but they said it would be a lot easier if we moved out here. And I didn't know what she was gonna say. I was kind of like half pitching the idea, like expecting her to be like, oh, well, you tried, come on home. But they said it'd be a lot easier if we moved out here. And the first words that she says to me is, okay, I'll start packing. And I was like, hold on, wait, hold on. What about this? What about this? What about this? And she just says, no, God's been stirring me up. I've been feeling like something new was supposed to be coming. And when you said that, I had complete peace over it.
And were you still pastoring in the church?
I was. And so that was just a moment for me where I said, man, okay. It was kind of like, when God calls you on your prayer, like, hey, I answered it. What are you going to do now? Are you going to move or are you not going to move? And so I went back, and it was this moment of just kind of more worry for me when I had to go to my grandfather and say, hey, so I'm stepping out of the church. I'm thinking of moving to Tennessee. And I had no idea how he was going to respond because I had been in his church my whole life. Now, what he said to me when I said, all right, I'm going to go and pursue music, he said, good. He said, it's about time that you get out and follow the calling that God has for you. And I was like, whoa. So I got so emotional in that moment because I was expecting him to give me reasons why he needed me to stick around. He was just like, good, it's about time. And once I had that conversation, I was all in because God gave my wife complete peace and God gave my grandfather complete peace. And those were the two people that I was most worried about being uncomfortable with that decision.
What about your other family?
My other family, they were all for it. They were like, yeah, high five, go do it. We love you. But those were the two that were hard conversations for me to have. But both of them said, no, we got it. Go do it. And so I was just like, man, let's go. We're jumping all in. So it was just a couple months later that my wife and I were driving out to Tennessee with all of our stuff in the back, and we drove out. We didn't have jobs at the time. We got approved for our apartment application on the way to Tennessee. And so if it had not gone through, we were going to try to stay with our friend for a week or something like that. But we got approved for the apartment on the way out. I door dashed for the first few months to try to, keep the income up. We really just did what we had to do. But it was this crazy leap of faith where we said, all right, God, you answered all those prayers and you gave people peace about this. This is undeniably you at this point. So we have no idea what's next, but we know what we need to do right now, and that's go. And so we took off, and it has been the best choice we could have ever made. I always tell people, had music never worked out here, it was still the best choice we could have made for our family. It was the best choice I could have made for myself personally, and for the friends that we've made out here, the relationships that God has put us together with. I would not leave. I would not leave. Take the music out of the equation, and it's still the best thing that's ever happened to us. So it's really great.
So after you moved here, you worked odd jobs.
Yep.
We're going to talk about where God led you after that.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Very
You went
exciting.
from hip hop
Yep.
to what?
Well, we'll talk about that, because that's a longer answer.
Okay, we're going to talk about it when we come back.
All right.
Sean, before you left Colorado and you came here, your grandfather told you something.
This was something that I hold on to all the time, and I have actually gone on to give this advice to other people. When my grandparents knew that I was coming out here, they said, while you're out there, while you're on your way, as you're doing life, pray for the things that you want, because obviously you want to go do music, you want to grow a career in Christian music. Pray for the things that you want, but tell yourself honestly and tell God honestly that you will serve him faithfully wherever he puts you, even if that's not in music. And that was one of the hardest things that I ever had to pray, because I had to pray honestly. I had to take myself out of it, because I'm uprooting my family. We're moving away. We have nobody out here. We have nothing out here. So of course I'm praying that, my dreams, the career comes true. But to be able to pray, God, even if it doesn't, I'm going to serve you wherever you have me. And God called me on it. And he actually led me to working in a church for the first 10 months that I was out here, not doing anything musically, not on the worship team, not anything. I was actually working on the video production team. And in that season, that was me saying, I'm going to walk this out, because I prayed and I promised God that I would serve him faithfully wherever. He didn't put me in music, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Did they know you were in music?
They did, but everybody in Tennessee is in music. So it wasn't a special situation. They brought me on board. They loved the work. They knew what I did. And they said, well, we'd love to, and they even told me, we'd love to have you with us for as long as we can. And if that's forever, then that's great. And it ended up being about 9 or 10 months where after that, I had somebody come across my music and they offered me a spot on the Winter Jam tour in 2023. To me, that was the result of the faithfulness of saying, God, I will serve you wherever you have me. Because that Winter Jam tour was not a door that I could have opened myself. It was this crazy, so-and-so sent your song to so-and-so, it came across this desk, let's get together. And it was just like, whoa, I would have never been able to take myself there. But in faithfulness to God and in being obedient to God, you do what he asks you to do, and he does the rest. And so now we're here. And that was the launch of it all.
What happened after?
So did the Winter Jam tour. After the Winter Jam tour, just the relationships that I was able to build on that tour were incredible. I got to meet, festival directors and pastors. And so we had, my team and I were able to build our own tours coming off of that. Music just did so well. And one of our songs that did really well was a song called It Is Finished. It spent 10 weeks at #1 on the Christian rock charts. That was a song that I got to do with a man named Kevin Young from a group called Disciple. And I had been a fan of Disciple coming into this. And so when I met them, they were the nicest guys. Like on stage, they're hard rock and they're shouting, but off stage, they're just like, what's up, buddy? I love you. How you doing?
Now, did you write this? Or
I did, yes. And so I had written this song called It Is Finished, and I had the song. I was very excited about it. It was a lot more rock than I would typically put out, but it was just such a good song. I said, this song has to be something. Now, on the Winter Jam tour, I had spent a lot of time learning from Kevin Young. I had probably the hardest mental crash of my life on Winter Jam because it was my first tour. It was so much in so little of a time. It was basically just being thrown in the deep end, and I was like, oh my goodness, how am I gonna get through this? And Kevin came right alongside me and he said, man, I've been where you are. I've been doing this for a long time. Let me tell you some things. Let me show you how to get through this. And he really picked me up as a mentor. He put me on his back and he just guided me through the rest of that tour. And so coming around on the back end, being able to show this song to him and him say, yeah, I want on, let's do it. I was like, are you serious? Is this happening right now? And so that was probably one of my favorite things to come out of that Winter Jam experience was the relationship that God started between me and Kevin, and then the song that came out of that relationship. It was so incredible.
And you've written so many more powerful songs. You wrote one, House of God.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
House of God was inspired by my time at my grandfather's church. Now, my grandfather's church, like I said earlier, smack in the inner city, just right in the middle of all of the chaos. Now, that church is the only place that I could imagine where you can see a former convict standing in the pew next to the sweet old lady and her grandkids, and they're hugging each other, saying, good to see you today, and then let's praise Jesus. That's the only place in the world where people from those walks of life can come together and be there for one purpose, to praise God. That's the transforming power of God. I'm talking about the guys with the tattoos on their heads and the families that were broken and the people that have been through the worst kind of addictions. It doesn't matter where you're from or what you've done. It matters what you're here for and what God is going to turn your life into. And that's what the House of God is all about, that there is this one place where everybody is welcome, and there's one place where if you come sincere, you will not leave the same.
And you have a video.
We do. That video was very special to me.
I've seen that video. It is such an awesome video.
Yeah, thank you so much. That video was a very special moment in my career because I got to actually shoot that video in the church. That's shot in my grandfather's church. Everybody that you see in that video is a member of that congregation.
Plus your grandfather.
Plus my grandfather. He is seen in verse 2 preaching. Now, one of my favorite parts about that video, though, comes at the very beginning. It fades up from black and you see the song title, but then you see in the back, or you hear in the background, somebody singing, glory, glory, hallelujah. And that is a soundbite from my grandfather leading worship in the 80s. We were able to track down that soundbite. We clipped it out of a radio recording. And I said, we have to put this song at the beginning, just as a nod to the sacrifice that he made for ministry, the history that he has in ministry. That was my way of, symbolically saying, I want to continue the legacy of ministry. Although I'm doing it in a different way, I'm still doing it. I'm still reaching out, and I'm still, following God faithfully the same way that you taught me how to do. And so that little soundbite at the beginning of the video is my favorite moment. In all of the things that I've done visually, that's probably my favorite piece that I've ever done.
Glory, glory, hallelujah. Since I laid my burden down, let's get together in the house of God. Wherever we're from, whatever we've done, we leave our difference at the door. No matter what's wrong, how far that we've run, there's no distance anymore. We walk in this place, knowing there's grace in the presence of the Lord. So don't wait, come find what you're looking for. Let's get together in the house of God. We're showing up with expectation.
Where is God taking you now? We have a few minutes to talk.
Got some new music stored up. We have a awesome tour that we put together, doing a lot of festivals, and just this crazy opportunity. What I love about my history as a family pastor is that I have actually not stopped acting as a family pastor, meaning when we go out to these concerts, I'm not doing the concert and then jumping off stage. We're doing the concert and then we're meeting people afterwards. We're saying, what's going on in your life? How are you doing? Tell me the highs, tell me the lows. They remind me that God is being God everywhere and in everybody's life. And so it's so cool to be able to speak encouragement into people. It's awesome to be able to celebrate their victories with them and pray them out of their lows at the same time. So the acting and the job of family pastor, it has actually not stopped. And the genre of music that we do, there's something for everybody in that. It's not just CCM, it's not just pop, it's not just rock. There's a little bit of everything because I want everyone to experience a concert and walk away saying at least one song was for them. So it's been a huge blessing, a lot of in-person stuff to look forward to, and I'm just so excited to see what other relationships God will spark from all of it.
I am sure God is going to continue using you in a mighty way. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
God bless you.
God bless.
My friend, are you struggling with the purpose of your life? Give it to the Lord. He knows your name. He knows everything about you. He's sovereign. He's in control. Give it to Him. This is today's Nashville. This is faith.